Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year 2022. We welcome you all to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I am a cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court appointed and private, marriage counseling, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session and also group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550. And our website is lifecoachdanamzalak.com. Today, I'm very excited to have on our last episode of season 3 and our 10th episode, a very special guest, Julie Corracio. And just like every of my past episodes, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Julie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you for everything you do for people. So my name is Julie Corracio. I'm an award-winning life and end-of-life organizer. I help people declutter in all areas of their life. So it's just beyond the physical. I'm an author, a certified life coach, and a podcast host of Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out. I'm based in Wheeling, West Virginia. I just moved back to my hometown, but I work with people all over the world, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for the quick but good introduction. Now, what brought you into doing this business? I mean, have you saw the demand? What really took you to this new venture?
Well, the truthful answer was I had just moved from Los Angeles to Raleigh, North Carolina, and started a job. My background's in nonprofit, so fundraising, grant writing, and I walked into this job, and it was, I don't like to say mistake, because I don't believe in that. We learn lessons, but I was like, what have I done? The person who was handing off the job said, this place is a hot mess. And it quickly became apparent that that was an accurate statement. So I said, I don't want to go just get another job. So what can I do that will use my skill set? I got to make money. I'm a single woman. I got to feed myself. But where can I make a difference? How can I help support people moving forward in their life? And so I came up with professional organizing. And then I had this client fairly early on, and she said, I want to talk. I don't want to organize. Can we just talk? And I said, you're the client. We can do whatever you choose. So we ended up, I usually work in 4-hour sessions because we're doing a lot of physical decluttering. It takes time. You spend all those years getting all that stuff. It takes time. So we probably spent 3 hours talking, but we were able to get to the root of what caused her to buy and get her physical clutter. And so after that, I had an aha moment. I said, it's more about the clutter and getting to the root of that, because we can organize whatever, but the clutter is more important. And so that made me get my life coaching certification, because I thought I want more skills with this. And it switched my focus from it's still organizing, but more on clearing clutter and the more the life aspect, and the fact that it's not just the physical stuff, right? It's the mental, it's emotional, it's our health, it's our relationships, it's all of that.
Correct. Now, when you say clutter, is it mostly people who also hoard, or this has nothing to do with hoarding? Because hoarding is also in the realm of mental illness. So how do you differentiate between both?
Someone like you would work with a hoarder. I would not. Now I could work on the cleanup if they were working with a pro like you, but as you said, hoarding is a mental disorder. I don't believe that clearing our clutter is a mental disorder. Now, again, like you're a pro and you might say, well, anxiety is technically, a mental health issue. So I do work with people who have anxiety and depression. So it's a part of it, but there are also, I don't want to say extreme, but there are different levels to it, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. Now, when it comes to, because I know we had a conversation before, you said that you personally have dealt with anxiety and depression early on. What did you do to be able to not get rid of it, because you don't really get rid of, but how did you manage your symptoms of anxiety and depression? And how did you decide to be able to say, you know what, let me take all my skills, make it in a somewhat positive, and start my business to help others who are dealing with similar issues?
Well, when I was younger, I didn't deal with it. Or when I did deal with it, it was with an unhealthy habit. For instance, emotional eating. Instead of dealing with something, well, I'll go have a bag of potato chips, or binge eating. And so for a long time, I didn't deal with it or didn't deal with in healthy manners. And then one day my brother said to me, who love him to death, he's my baby brother, but not the most, doesn't do as much self-examination as I do. And he said to me, you see yourself as a victim. And in that moment, I could hear him. And it was this like, wow, oh my God, wow, that really rings true. What does that mean? And so that started my deepening path of self-exploration. And so the truth of the matter is, and this might be the first time a guest has ever said this on your show, I did something called the Clear Sight Clairvoyant program when I was living out in Los Angeles. And it was about clairvoyance, seeing yourself. And so it was about taking out all these layers. And so when I was able to move the muck, I could say, oh, I can see where this started from. No wonder you're depressed. No wonder you're anxious. So this is what it is. So how can we deal with it to move forward? And so that was the first huge step. And so I'm always about personal growth. How can I learn about myself to be the best woman that I can be? But that was the starting point.
So explain to me a little bit about this clairvoyance. I mean, I know that a lot of people, and I mean, this field has always received a lot of negative comments, I would say, perception, because this BS, people are just kind of like giving you just the wrong information, or they just assume that they can read you, but they cannot really know anything about you. So what exactly did they do for you to be able to see from within and not from without?
Well, everything's energy, whether you believe that from a spiritual perspective, like I do, or physics perspective, read all the quantum energy and all that about all that good stuff. And so it's like everything's a layer. So it's about peeling the onion back. Well, okay, I'm anxious, but why am I anxious? Or I'm depressed. Why am I depressed? And getting through the layers and digging deeper until we can say, oh, this explained that this would happen in your childhood, but doing it in a manner, as I'm sure you do in therapy, you wouldn't just say, oh, some abuse happened. Bam, I would have, my head would explode. I had to get through all these other layers. Oh, this is what happened. This is why you are the way you are. And coming from a place of neutrality, instead of getting upset and spiraling out of control and blah, blah. And not only is it spiraling out of control, it serves as a distraction. So that allowed me to push all that away and say, okay, this is what it is. How do we get neutral about this? How do we use this information to move forward? We're all intuitive. We all have that inner guidance, but society gets in the way. Being on my phone 24/7 gets in the way. Not having a mindfulness practice, all that clutters your energy and whatever. And you can't get quiet and within to listen to that wisdom. I don't know what's best for you, but if you're my client, I would support you and figuring that out. You bring that wisdom to the surface. And so the program allowed me to bring my own innate wisdom to the surface.
So is it basically self-hypnosis kind of practice where you go into like a meditation state and you start really examining what you've done in the past and try to figure out exactly what were your mistakes? Because it's kind of hard, to wrap your mind around that science. I mean, for me, my studies were mostly clinical. I study something that what we can read in books and really absorb the material and apply it in a reality world. But the thing is, when it comes to clairvoyance and when it comes to all of the sciences, it's hard to really understand the process. Now, I do meditation every single day, Julie, so I understand how that process works. But meditation is something that has been proven to work. Now, clairvoyance, it's still a sign that is a bit iffy when it comes to that aspect. So were you reluctant to really want to try this method, or has other people have told you that it worked very well, so you should do it? Or how did you come across it?
Because they used to do free readings off the street. And so I was like, I'm interested. I want to go. And I had too many experiences. And so again, to me, it goes back to, and I appreciate your concern. And there are a lot of quacks and flakes out there. But I would say the same in your profession. I'm watching that thing with Will Ferrell now, and the psychiatrist who took all his money and stuff, which is just crazy to me. And so so I did that. And so self-hypnosis is probably the best term that I would use to describe what you do, because you're getting neutral, you're getting centered, you're going into kind of a hypnotic state to be able to read and understand things. Now this might sound wacky, but as I was doing the program, one day I was in Los Angeles driving and I heard, but I think that you could in a meditative state hear a voice, and it said, get over in the next lane now. I didn't even question it. I got over and the car ran into the car who was in front of me. Had I stayed there, I would have been in an accident. I mentally couldn't have had an accident. I was in Hawaii once, and this was way years before I started this. And this is why I'm such a huge believer of listening into your intuition and trusting that voice. And it is there if we choose to listen to it. And I heard, you need to get up and move now. And I was like, blah, 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 blah. And then on the fourth time, when I felt like I heard a voice yelling at me, I turned around and there was a guy staring at me, and it gave me the creeps. And even though it was Hawaii, it was kind of deserted. So I just moved where there were other people staying. A woman was assaulted said on the news the next day at the same beach I was. Was it that man? I think it was. I can't prove that. But, I'm sure if you have mothers, I'm sure if you're a father, you talk about intuition. Men will probably say gut feeling.
Yes.
To me, that's what it's about honing about, like in those situations, keeping me safe, but then like getting silent. Is this what I want to do? Like, was starting my own business the right thing?
Mm-hmm.
I said, let me sit and listen to that. Yeah, it was, because I'm going to support people. I'm going to make a difference.
So was there a voice in your mind to say, stop looking for other jobs and start focusing on what your skill sets are all about? Or you just went through another type of intuition? You just felt fed up with all the employees out there and you just want to go on your own. So was there a mix of both that happened?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So the thing that's interesting about me is I have this very intuitive, creative side, but I also have a very logical. A lot of times I feel like people tend to be one or the other, or to the extreme. And I feel both of mine are pretty well balanced. And so something had happened at work, and I was like, this is nuts. I don't consider myself the most logical person, but this is crazy. I mean, and so I thought, I can't go on like this. So what am I going to do? Okay, well, let's get quiet. Let's get centered and ask. It's like the name of my business is Reawaken Your Brilliance. I sat down to meditate because I did a show, an online TV show, and the guy's like, come and do it. And I was like, I don't have a show name. And Thrive kept coming up. I'm like, Thrive, no, no, no. And I sat down, and it's like somewhere from above dropped in Reawaken Your Brilliance. And then I Googled, there's nothing Reawaken Your Brilliance. I'm like, there we go. There's the name. Wow. So because I meditate, you're a meditator. Wouldn't you say that you have insights like that?
Well, I do. I meditate sometimes when I come across a very difficult case with patients. And, I, of course, do research, like internet research, but at the same time, with all the conflicting information that you see out there, you want to be able to absorb everything, then just detach yourself from the studies that have been made, and then start trusting your intuition.
Yes.
And your intuition will tell you or will guide you on what is the best method to be able to deal with a situation or a case of that sort. So but again, in your case, for example, Julie, I'm sure that, going through the depression and anxiety and overcoming all of that and learning about who you are as a person and still, overcoming those issues or those worries that you had and end up to be very successful, that is definitely something that a lot of people don't have the discipline or the mindset to be able to accomplish, because for them, when you think the worst or you think the best, the end result is going to be based on your thoughts. But if everything has happened in the past that were really negative, no one's going to be able to have the mindset to be able to start thinking positive, because they say, maybe I'm destined to not accomplish anything in my life. Maybe look how my life is treating me. I don't deserve happiness. I don't deserve this or that. But those who actually succeed continue thinking positive and they succeed more. Okay. Even I think Anthony Robbins said a quote like that. I don't remember word per word, but he said, those who actually succeed have the desire to succeed more. Those who actually fail accept failure and continue living that path. So there's no, the distinction is based on your past experiences. So in your case, if let's say you were anxious and depressed, more chances are you would continue thinking this way, that maybe I don't deserve to be happy. I don't deserve this. But you change your mindset. And that is because you put in the effort.
Yes. And I also want to say, one, you put on the effort, you make a choice. And if you need to get on meds, get on meds. I think that there is this, and I'll tell you the person, I had a different teacher, and I know, I'm sorry, I feel like I threw you through the threw you for a loop with the clairvoyant thing, but it was the honest answer. But, you know, the one person said, oh, don't get on meds because that messes up your energy. And I'm like, and, you know, and I worked with, I'm like, with a friend, I was like, you're depressed. You need to get on meds. There's no shame in that. You know, there are different things that are going to work for different people. But I know for me, I luckily, along with, I believe that depression and anxiety are, and I don't know if inherited is the right word, but I believe there's a biological within your family. But along with that, I got a stubborn mindset. And so I was determined, okay, what is it that I have? Because I have a choice here to make. It's like when my brother said that, okay, what does that mean? Well, how can I fix that? I don't know how to fix what it means if I see myself as a victim. What choices can I make to do that? And to me, everything's holistic. My diet is going to affect if I'm depressed or I'm anxious, if I don't exercise, if I don't meditate, all of that comes into play. And so it's figuring out what works best for you.
Now, in your practice, or I would say in your business, do you help people go through the similar process, such as clairvoyance, or do you help them go through meditation or get therapy or anything of that sort? So, because again, if someone is trying to declutter, the chances are is that maybe their mind is as disorganized as their environment. So they just duplicate or project what's in their mind into a reality that is tangible. So how do you start fixing the mind first before you could, because even if you come and you clean everything, chances are they're going to come back and mess it up again. So it has to be something that is more consistent or sustainable. So what do you do to create this sustainability?
Well, so for one, I don't teach clairvoyant or bring that in my practice.
Okay.
You know, that's for me to get clear and work on my intuition. You know, there are programs out there if people want to do that. So it's really taking an assessment, figuring out what's going on. Like, here's an example. I was working with someone and they're like, I keep calling in these relationships that, and they all they have is clutter. They're women and all their life, they have all this physical clutter. And I was like, but the common denominator is you. So what is it that we can figure out around you that's creating that? So figuring out what's going on, where do we start? And, you know, I believe as you work on the inner, it's reflected on the outer. So for example, depression can cause clutter and so and clutter can cause depression. So it's about starting in one area and seeing how that, so for instance, with your example of we clear the clutter and it might come back. If we figure out why that happened, then we can set up something that's all individual. So maybe, for instance, clutter is caused because they can't say no. So someone says, hold this for me. I had that client who in their basement, they refinished furniture and they had so we were setting up a system. And I was like, well, what are these big armoires that are taking up a quarter of where you make money for your family? Oh, someone asked me to hold those. Okay, how long ago? A year ago. What? No, they get a 2-week deadline and they're moving them out. So that's one example of saying no. Or here's another example. I had a person that had about a 3-foot tall stack of paper. And I said, well, what are those? Oh, those are articles and information that I'm going to send to people. So we kept talking. Well, how long have you had? And blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden we got down to it, to what is it really about? She said, I'm afraid that if I don't send these to people, they won't love me anymore. As soon as she articulated that, she had that aha moment. She knew that wasn't true. That's what I'm talking about, having the wisdom within. She was and then released it, and then we put it all in the recycling bin. But she had this false belief somehow that got into her mind that she needed to be able to do that. When she expressed it, she let it go.
Wow. Okay. So again, it's just a fear that is constructed by the mind that makes them, because always, if I throw this and maybe I'm going to need it in a month or two from now, I'm going to regret that I've thrown it. And then that creates, issues and say, oh, I should have done this. Now I'm going to have to search it again, blah, 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 and all of this.
But can you trust that you get what you need when you need this? I say that a lot. Okay, so like you give something away and then you might come back and say, Julie, well, you said, trust to get what you need when you need it. I'm like, okay, do you really need it right now? If that is true that you really need it right now, can we rent it? Can we borrow it? Do we, we don't have to necessarily go out and buy it. So as one example.
So what would be the thumb of rule or the rule of thumb that has to do with how long can someone have to keep items before they decide I have to get rid of them because I have not used them for a certain period of time? Is there like a rule of thumb that you suggest? If you have not used it for more than 6 months, that means that you're not going to use it in the next 6 months from now. So what would you recommend to listeners?
It I would say maybe a year or two. I'd go a little longer because again, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know the person. Some people 6 months works great. Some other people they can't do that. Now, I personally recommend, and what it's I do myself, I go through everything I own every single year.
Okay.
So that it's a constant, it's a yearly thing. I'm keeping track of it. And if I haven't used it in a year, good chances are it's not going to be used. Now, again, that's a guideline, not a we have to listen to this to T.
Okay, so it's like a spring cleaning that you start. That's why the spring cleaning to just be able to get rid of the clutter, things that you don't need, things that you don't deal with on the day-to-day basis. And that's so now when it comes to recommending to listeners that are actually dealing with cluttering issues, is there like a strategy that you offer that they can do prior to seeking your services? So someone may be a bit concerned about this is so much of a mess. Maybe I need to organize this first before she comes in and she start telling me, no, this you don't need, this you don't need. So is there like a specific guideline or roadmap that you would suggest?
Truthfully, I prefer people not do anything. I want to see it as is. I don't want it prettied up. I don't want it cleaned up before I see it. So let's figure out what it is and what's going on. That's what I recommend. Now, if someone's listening and just wants to get started, then I would say, like, is something driving you crazy? If you can't sleep on your bed because it's cluttered with books and you're not getting 8 hours of sleep, start there. If you're not paying your mortgage on time, then the office needs to get decluttered and organized so you can pay your bills. Or if you have an impending deadline, if you're going to have someone come in and install a closet system, get your closet decluttered.
So where can anyone find you, Julie? If let's say someone needs your services, you have to be going, so it has to be local to West Virginia and not all around the US, or can you help people remotely?
I do. I help people who can do decluttering virtually, organizing, and obviously coaching virtually as well, too.
So where can they find you?
If they go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com, they can find out all the good stuff.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Well, that is all the time that we have for today's episode. I do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us, and thank you again for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible story. Now, we hope that you have all enjoyed today's episode, and I'm very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have scheduled for season 4 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories just like the one that you listened to today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. What other people feel about their lack of accomplishment is none of your business. You do what you feel is right for you. Expect the naysayers to bring you down for their miserable level so you don't stay too long on your pedestal. Whatever projection they have about their own life has nothing to do with you. We're all meant to shine, but it's everyone's choice to decide how they want to live their lives. Stay away from those who are not encouraging you to reach greatness, as their presence is a complete waste of your valuable time. My name is Dr. Dan Emzalag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.